That's new.
And we're recording. Welcome to Roaring Truth with Love. We were just having a really important conversation, and we decided that it's time for us to record and press record and talk about it. Otherwise, we would probably be here for 2 hours and then we'd go, oh, we didn't record.
Yeah.
So it's nice to be back. But let's just get straight into it so that we don't lose our flow. We're talking about the polarities, yeah?
Yeah.
And you were just talking about the split in the awakened community. What are you seeing, awakened community? What are you seeing from your perspective right now?
Yeah. So from my perspective, what I am seeing is, well, first, let me preface a little. We've all been very aware of the divide and conquer agendas and how they created different identifications for different groups of people, which created already divides, right? Of like many different kinds. I'm trying to generalize to keep it simple.
This has been going on for a long time. It's just that it's become more and more obvious in the last 18 months, 2 years, right?
Right.
You know, exactly. This is going on for a long time.
Very long time. Yeah, it's just way more overt. And so what I am noticing just within this past month, maybe, but like really amping up the past couple weeks, is another sort of split happening. And this one is not necessarily it doesn't have anything to do with social engineering. It doesn't have anything to do with anything external, like the puppets, the powers that be pulling strings and creating the identifications and creating the divides. This one I see happening like internally. So like within groups that once believed that they were cohesive and that they were like on the same page, now I'm witnessing a split happen in consciousness, where it's like those of us that have, agreed to really do the self work and the shadow work and take responsibility, and then others that are projecting and sort of throwing out accusations. And again, I'm just observing, I'm grateful to not actually be, a part of this. It's what I see going on. And sort of to piggyback off of that, I also see within people's personal lives, those of us that have done the work and are really agreeing to lead from a higher consciousness and to really remain vigilant and self-aware of our roles in things and how we're leading. I also am witnessing people's different matrix attachments falling away even more like steadily and sort of quickly.
Yeah. It's a shift in resonance, isn't it? Like because it's almost as though everything that's happened out there, as you were talking about the social engineering, has asked us to be more internal. And this is part of our own hero's journey, isn't it? Go into that place of isolation, go internal and decide discern what is right for me and what is not right for me. And we're all being called to act more and more in accordance with that, to reflect on that even more. And then we get to choose whether we're going to act on it even more or if we're not going to act on it even more. And so for each of us individually, it then projects out into the world as well. Maybe, I'm setting a boundary that I hadn't set previously because I wasn't able to see the level to which I was I was out of integrity.
Right.
And so the more that we step into this heart space and the more that we live in this space of integrity, the more that we our frequency changes, right? Doesn't it?
Yes.
And so then those that are not prepared to match that will drop away more. And so to me, like when I visualize what's happening, that's what I'm seeing is like the resonance has shifted, and it's creating that two world split that people have been talking about for some time, and
Right.
it can be really hard.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And it doesn't matter which pillar you were on,
Yeah,
or which identifications you align with, or what your beliefs are. It doesn't matter it's not about that anymore.
yeah,
You know,
yeah,
it's about exactly what you're speaking to, like that resonance, that frequency, that consciousness, and how, if you have done that self work where you're able to move forward from integrity, and then if there are others that have not also done that work, they're not going to be able to see it and honor it and respect it for what it is. And so then there might be lashing out or anger, or whatever
yeah.
type of human response we give, right? And in those situations when we're not able to go within.
Yeah, which then causes us, when there's that lashing out or whatever happens in the external world, then offers us another opportunity to go inwards, because we might feel the shame and the guilt and the grief that comes up as a result of this, or the anger, and to go inwards and go, okay, what do I need to clear next? And
Yeah.
it's a deeper level of shadow work, which
Yeah.
again shifts the resonance.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, personally, like on a personal level, I don't mean to sound like, I'm exempt or I'm above this. There has been so much deeper work coming up for me personally, just the
Yeah,
past couple weeks.
yeah,
But very, very insular, very my own personal space and what's happening in my own personal life. But um I was thinking this whole retrograde season was like rolling along pretty nicely. I was like super high vibing, woohoo, and then sort of all of a sudden it was like, oh, okay, I see where the work is. Okay, cool, good. We have some more work to do. We have some more clearing to do to prepare ourselves for where we're going.
yeah. And that's it, isn't it? We're preparing ourselves for where we're going, because we weren't, when we decided we wanted to do another episode, it was the catalyst was the children, wasn't it? Again, for us.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so we're creating, we're doing this, we're clearing this for them, and we're
Right.
clear, but we're clearing it for ourselves,
Right.
because when we clear it for ourselves, we're then making a clearer way for them, and
For them.
they still get to choose which way they're going to go. And
Right.
again, that's for us, for me in my own personal experience, which I shared and you know about with my daughter a number of weeks ago, that I'm doing the clearing work as she's going through her dark night of the soul. So I'm seeing her experience her dark night of the soul. And at the same time, I'm offered an opportunity to go even more inward and realize this is not about me. This is what is about me is me clearing my own stuff, so that I can be even more of a light, so that when she chooses to come out of the cave, she's got a light there that she can see.
That's right. Yeah. Yep. So that you can be that clear space holder
Yeah.
for.
Yeah. And that's why I'm seeing what's happening now, like you, I've so much of those old matrix programs have dropped away for me. I'm not even seeing them. I actually have to actively look. And I think that's part of where I live as well. I do have to actively look for it, but at the same time, I'm just not interested in it. It's so boring to me.
Yes.
There's so much of a more beautiful world out here in this polarity and this resonance in which I'm choosing to live, that all of that past stuff and all of those old matrix programs, they're just not interesting to me. I'm not spiritually bypassing. I'm just
No,
seeing it and I'm
I was
going, actually, it's not relevant.
I was just gonna say, no, you're not spiritually bypassing. And I know you, sister, and my knowing is that if you lived in a city, you would still be within this beautiful creator space.
Yeah.
That you've created for yourself, but it's like, you have found this amazing location to externally reflect back your internal, which is beautiful.
Yeah.
But we can do that like wherever we are, right? We have the ability to choose to become creators in our space.
Yeah.
And really we're really being asked to do that as well.
Yeah. Yeah, we are. And I want to, one of the things that we wanted to talk about today was homeschooling.
Yeah.
And that homeschooling journey and dispelling the myths. There's one thing that I want to share with you and with anyone else who's listening, because my daughters have been homeschooling since 2016. And they started homeschooling when we traveled Australia, and then they went to school for a year. And after that year at school, they decided they wanted to start homeschooling again. So they were 10 and 7 at the time when they decided, right, it's time to start homeschooling again. So my youngest has been homeschooling since she was 7. She's now 13. And she decided this year that she wanted to go to school. She wanted to go back to school. And so she had a whole bunch of reasons why she wanted to go back to school. And one of those reasons was because she wants to learn in even more of a group environment. And she wants to create this little group of people that she has and that are really important to her. And she felt that going to school was a way that was going to help her to be able to create that more than she was creating it already. So anyway, she started at school this first term. So in Australia, the second term, it started in about March or April. I can't even remember. Oh, it was April. That's right. It was two days before her birthday. And so she's been at school for nearly 2 months. And when she first went there, she went into this environment. So you can imagine we live in nature. We live in this space where we live in a world that is surrounded by this beauty and this creation that we've made in the last few years. And she now on a daily basis walks into this completely different world. Right. And she goes in the gate, the big prison fence. She walks through the fence. And I don't know if you guys have that over there. Do you have like the prison fences out the front of the schools?
No, I mean, there's security.
Security
in high schools. There's security guards in high schools here.
Wow. So ours is surrounded by literally a prison fence now.
Right.
So she walks through the fence, through the gate, and she walks into this different world. And when she first went in there, it was really hard for her. And the first day she came home and she's like, I never want to go back to that place. And I'm like, well, you've chosen that this is what you want. So, this is about commitment and dedication, and you've got what it takes to be able to do this. Anyway, so 2 months later, she's in a place now where she has created for herself exactly what she wanted. She loves this. There's a number of subjects that she loves, and she's created a real understanding of what she needs to do to thrive in those subjects. She's got a small group of girls that there's 4 or 5 of them, and they're like kindred spirits. When she first went in there, she was put with a bunch of girls that she didn't resonate with. And so she had to decide after a couple of days that I can't do this. And so she extracted herself from the group and sat by herself at lunchtime. And that was really challenging for her. But the reason that I say all that is because I believe, well, no, it's not even a belief, it's a knowing that she had the ability to be able to do that because of her homeschooling journey, and because she's developed the internal strength. Even though she doesn't believe she has that internal strength, she's developed the internal strength and the emotional maturity to be able to make the choices that best serve her. So to be able to walk in that environment, which is a completely different world, and to be able to to see what's going on and to interact within it, but at the same time find herself, be able to extract herself from it when necessary.
And it's like the the bottom line theme that I'm seeing is how she stayed in her integrity
Yeah.
instead of merging or, molding into the crowd, like the girls that she didn't resonate with,
Yeah.
right? So many. She's 13, right? Is she middle school or is she high school yet?
Yeah, so we just have primary school and high school over here, but it
Okay.
would be
Okay.
for you guys, it would be middle school because it's year 8. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Right. Year 8. Okay. So I mean, that is, in my opinion, that is one of the toughest ages, right in there, like 7th, 8th grade, really, really tough. And for her to walk in there and know, this doesn't make me feel good. This doesn't resonate with me. And so I choose to be alone with myself.
Yeah.
Is something that absolutely was modeled to her, right? Like through her homeschool experience, because through her homeschool experience, and also no matter where she went to school, she has you and James for parents. So that already, it's just such a blessing. And so it's going to be modeled to her because of that. But we know, because we've been on the homeschooling journey, that it provides that space for a child to discover who they are.
Yes. Yeah.
And to become self-confident in who they are, to believe themselves about who they are, all of that. So yeah, beautiful.
So this, what you just said about the space for the child to discover who they are, because that's the theme that's been coming up for me as well, is to a new level, is allowing her that space to discover who she is, even if it feels difficult for me, or if I don't like it, or I can see that maybe this is not the best choice. I'm allowing myself to step out even more and realize this is not about me now. This is her journey. And that's not just homeschooling, that's us as parents. So I know over the last 12 months, and it's been longer than 12 months now, because like that schools went into lockdown here. I'm pretty sure they went in sort of around about April last year. And more parents have, families have changed the way that they're doing things.
Right.
What are you seeing in families, in people, and how they're viewing the school system now, and the choices that they're making as a result of it?
Well, so first of all, let me just reflect back briefly how beautiful it is that, Penny she decided to go into the school system again, and you and James are honoring the fact that it's her path, and how for many of our children, that will be part of their path, because their soul, they need to experience it.
Yes.
And it reminds me, I don't even remember, like, I think it might have been a movie, but it was like, there was a group of people that lived in like Colorado or something, and they had separated from the rest of society, which had become very technocratic. And one of the daughters that lived on this commune wanted to go out west and be like the other kids and experience what they were experiencing. Of course, they had tons of technology and, technology that we don't even have available to us right now. And the mother was just frantic with worry and concern, and didn't like anything about it, was resisting every piece of it. And her daughter still went. I think she snuck in somehow, I don't even know, but anyway, she ended up coming back. But she had to have that experience, right? So like, that is meaningful. Like, I'm just sort of paying homage to the fact that, like, trusting that our children know, like, what they need
Yeah,
is so meaningful, and
absolutely.
allowing them to take that lead. Now
And
here,
can I just say there as well, our resistance is about us. Our resistance
right,
is believing that I haven't, not trusting that I've given them what they need to be able to navigate
right,
the situation, because every single one of us has to go through a natural rebellion from
yes,
the raising that we've had. And so and I think you and I discussed this a couple of weeks ago,
yeah,
is that,
yeah,
they're all having all of our older children now have been having their own rebellion in their own way, and it's so
right,
necessary, because there's so
right,
many people out there that haven't had the rebellion, and they're really angry right now.
right,
If we can
right.
only see that the rebellion is necessary, it makes the path so much easier.
Yes, totally, and I love the way you said natural. It's a natural rebellion, and it really
Yeah,
is, and
yeah,
it's part of our out of our it's part of our self-actualization
yeah.
and our soul individualization, right? So, yeah, it's natural and purposed and necessary. But to answer your question, it's, like, tough to answer that
Mhm.
because there so and of course I can only speak to what I observe. So there's a very large group of people that are um i- sort of adopting a matrix perspective where, like, we just need to get back to normal, and wanting to support schools, administrators, teachers, um likely supporting their children to sort of do whatever it is that they're told to do so that everyone can get back to normal, and coming from a space of, like, that's a virtue, that's loving, um to assist the school districts in whatever social distancing, masking types of regulations, vaccine whatever, so that everyone can get back to normal. And so that's a group of people who, they don't know what the world is, and they just don't have an inner knowing of how everything is functioning. And then there's
And that's all part of that split, isn't it? Like, it's not
yeah,
wrong. It's not wrong. It's
right,
actually,
right.
it's mitosis. So it's a
It's
natural
mitosis.
cell
Yeah,
division. Yeah.
yeah. And it's like, for me, it feels like this ecosystem of humanity. Like, you're not going to have this without this anyway. Like, it all is functioning, and, like, everything has its purpose so that, like, the other can be, you
Yeah.
know? Um, and so then there's a group of people that pulled their children out of school. There was a large group of people here in New York State that pulled their children out of school in 2019 when they did away with religious exemptions for immunizations.
Mm.
Hopefully our video won't get flagged, but I don't want to be all coding and because there were a lot of people that used religious exemptions, and they also made the medical one, like, way more stringent. Like, you basically have to die and come back to life to get a medical exemption. Um, so 2019 that happened here. So there was a huge influx of homeschoolers then. But then when all of this rolled out, with the pandemic 18 months ago or whatever, more
Flag,
parents,
pandemic flag.
yeah, pandemic. Um, I think they just kind of, like, didn't send their students back when schools reopened. Um, and then I would say that those people, though, that group of people probably will never go back because they've gained additional awareness, or maybe they already had some and they just are now more leading from that awareness.
Mhm.
And they're not gonna probably go back, is my guess.
Yeah.
Um, but there's also I am observing a lot of individuals who they are not okay with some of these regulations, some of the things their children have to navigate in schools, and yet they believe that they don't have a choice.
Yeah.
And so they have been advocating for their children, like, to get rid of mask mandates and things like that. that's been a really big deal here, is
Right.
that type of advocating. And so I even see like a division for that. It's not, it's a split
Yeah.
between those people and homeschoolers, because those individuals are like to the homeschoolers, why don't you help us? Like, help us advocate for this and like get the masks off of our children. But homeschoolers are like, but there's another way.
Mm.
But I also see some homeschoolers who are putting a lot of effort into advocating for those children that are still in school,
Mm-hmm.
um, which is so beautiful, right? Like, I know you and I both come from the space that, every child is meaningful to us and important to us.
Yeah.
And however we can help any child in any way. But it's sort of in a nutshell, that's sort of what I see happening here.
Mm.
How about you?
Yeah, interesting. It's I've not necessarily, I think just because my girls are older and we haven't been doing as many homeschooling events and things like that now. But what
Yeah.
I've seen since Penny started at school is she will say to me so often, like she'll be talking about her friends and she's like, they think they don't have a choice, mum. And
Right.
and that's the biggest thing that I see with all of it and particularly with our children, is that people think that they don't have a choice. And I've had questions of, actually I had one the other day, was something about the registration, and I was like, somebody said to me, don't you need to get permission for her to do that? And I'm like, no, I don't need to get permission for her to do that. Like, she's my daughter. So
Right.
I say this is what's happening, and that's what's happening. And just simple things like that people have been conditioned now. And this has
Yeah.
only been like 100, but not very long, like 100 years. Let's
Yeah.
just go 100 years. That people have been conditioned to believe that the state has authority over their children. And I heard the other day, like in Canada, they can vaccinate their children without the parents' consent.
Yes.
And this is like, I studied human rights at university, and I was actually thinking about it the other day, is like, there has to be the international law of human rights. This is a violation of the international law of human rights, and that's a human law. Like, I understand nature's laws and that they trump everything, but this is still a human law. And
So, right.
yeah,
And that seems to be part of kind of like what we were speaking to before about how it's like everything is purposed. Like, that is happening to, like, even though, we can look at it on one level and be like, this is really freaking messed up, right? But at the same time, like, it's happening to wake people up to how we have slowly accepted this external authority over us. Like, it's working for us. It really is
yeah,
working for us.
yeah,
Like at this point, you don't have to do any research. You don't have to have any background knowledge or anything. You just got to look around and be like,
yeah.
okay, whoa, right? So it's meant
And
to be shining the light.
yes, look around, and also look to your own family and ask
Right.
them the questions. What do you want to do? Have the conversations with
Right.
our children of,
Right.
what do you think about this? And just start those conversations. They might not think anything about it, they might not have any knowledge about it, but at my daughter's school, they have a vaccinate, let's just say it, like they have a
Yeah.
vaccination room. And
Uh-huh.
she freaked out in the first couple of weeks she was there. She's like, what is this room? What's going to happen to me? Because she's quite clear and quite knowledgeable that if this becomes a requirement for her to be at school, she won't be going to school anymore, because
Well,
she
that's
knows.
beautiful.
Yeah,
She has established her line,
she's
right?
established her line. Yeah.
Yeah.
So and so it's about having those conversations with our kids, rather than just believing that this authority out here has to give me permission to make my decision.
Right. Right. Exactly. And it's like you were saying before, it's there isn't an awareness that there is a choice
Mm.
at all, in many ways. It's like not even that that many of us don't know we have a choice. it's something even more blocked off from choice than that, where it's just, yeah, it's to me, it's again, that might be purpose for some of us,
Yeah.
right? That might be purpose. But if we are able to access the possibility that maybe we can take authority back and have a choice, then the first place to start is having those conversations with our children so
Yeah.
that they can be prepared. We can help them, establish their own priorities, right? Like what their preferences are so that they can respond appropriately if needed. So
Yeah.
things don't come in as such a shock for them as well, I think.
Yeah.
That's another thing that I've sort of witnessed is like almost like a denial. Many of us were speaking to things like we saw everything that was going to happen, like sort of from the beginning, like this is going to happen, this is going to happen. And it
We
was
need
like,
more
oh,
conspiracy theories because they've all been
right,
proved. Yeah.
right, exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And, there was so much pushback, like, that's never going to happen. And then it's like everything happens. And now it's like, okay. And so, just like embodying like how amazing and strong we are. Like and we have, not only do we have ourselves inside of that amazingness and strength, but we have the others, we have each other.
Mm.
And we can look at this together. Like we
Yeah.
can look at this together and we
Yes.
will be okay.
And talk about it.
Yeah. And talk about it. Yeah.
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 So when people have started to, I guess, explore the possibility of homeschooling,
Mhm.
they are starting down that path, are they not?
Yeah.
Because they are questioning, does the government, actually have this authority over me and my children? And I know one of the myths that I encountered a number of years ago, is it a myth or was it just this person's opinion? But he said to me, your children shouldn't just be subject to your opinion. They should be subject to a whole lot of opinions. And I'm like, yeah, I understand that.
Right.
But I'm not attempting to project myself onto my children, and that's where the balance comes into it. And I think as a parent who's homeschooled for a long time, is that actual homeschooling my children, and both James and I have said it many times, is that we've learned more during homeschooling than our children have learned.
Yeah.
Because we've learned how to let go, and
Right.
we know that we are the guardians for our children. We're the guardians. We're here to guide them to discern good choices for themselves. Right. But at the same time, they are each an individual human who's here to go on their own journey and learn their own path. And if they choose a different tribe to the one that I choose, then it's okay. I will go through my own stuff, but it's okay because that's their choice.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. I definitely think that there is some type of erroneous conception that parents homeschool to actually control their children more. Now, it's probably true. For me, this is true. There are some of the reasons that I do homeschool is because I don't want my children subjected to actually the very thing that gentleman said to you, because my feeling is that they are taught one perspective.
Yes.
And not others. And I know this to be true because I have studied the curriculum and researched the curriculum, and one perspective is offered, not another perspective. So in that sense, yes, I would like to control my child's environment where they are open to an environment that actually has more perspectives offered to them, and where I can expose them to many different perspectives and let them choose. And also it's so beautiful the way that we can follow their lead. I'm remembering so when I started homeschooling, when Owen was in kindergarten, because my eldest, for anyone watching this doesn't know, he went through public school. He went through the school system the entire way. Okay. So he's 10 years older than my second child. So I started homeschooling when Owen was in kindergarten. And I remember a day, no, Penny was in nursery school. And I remember a day I had this really cool day planned. I had this whole lesson planned that was all about water. And there were like things we were going to do outside with water. There were like science experiments. There were crafts. Like it was going to be amazing, you know, and I was so excited. Neither of my kids wanted anything to do with it. They hated it. I was so upset. I was so mad. I felt like I was failing. And that day it was like this beautiful moment of like, finally it started to click where I was like, oh my gosh, this isn't about me. You know, this isn't about me. Okay. And I've even a little bit like, I'm going to be correcting again next year for Owen, because Owen, I went a little too, I found that the curriculum that I was using was a little too much like school for him. So we're going to be doing a
Yeah.
little more unschooling next year for him.
Mm.
You know, just sort of correct that a bit. So that's the beauty of homeschooling, is that we get to, rather than control what our children are learning, we get to actually witness their gifts and where they excel, and
Yeah.
really help them grow that by finding new ways um to support them. And we grow so much
Yeah.
because we just keep expanding. In every way that we support them, we're expanding, right?
Yeah. And it's the it's the adage of, you know, well, I did this and I'm okay, so they'll be okay if they do the same thing. And
Right.
I reflect on it. And you know, where the strongest people have been given the opportunity to develop their skills in a controlled, safe environment, and then at a time of their choosing, able to step out into the world with
Right.
those skills and integrate to a new level. That's the natural process that we were talking about when we press record on this video this morning as well. It's the natural organic process of being a human. It's the evolutionary spiral of, okay, I'm going to be in this environment and I'm going to be safe, I'm going to be protected, I'm going to be nourished and nurtured, and then when I feel strong enough, I'm going to step into the next environment that's going to challenge me. And like I said with Penny, you know, she is stepping into a whole new environment, which allows her to integrate the skills, because she didn't know that she had those skills when she was living in the environment that she was living in, because she wasn't getting to
Right.
challenge herself with
Right.
that.
Right.
And that's
She was
what,
frustrated. I remember she was
yeah,
frustrated because there was like this thing in her that wanted to bloom.
yes,
So it was time to move on to the next
yes,
space so that she could
exactly.
expand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the process that we all go through when we're
Right.
learning to live in this world, is
Right.
we have to allow ourselves time at a certain level to learn, and then to consolidate the knowledge that we have, and then
Right.
we go to the next level. It's like a video game, right? We go to the next level, and the next level's harder. And so why at 4 years old in Australia, that's when they start school. Why should we at 4 years old, at a key developmental time in their lives, throw them into this environment that doesn't make them feel safe, teaches them things that aren't necessarily going to help them feel nourished and nurtured, and expect that they're going to be okay for the rest of their lives?
I just had I just had this image in my mind when you were speaking of like taking like a cloud and putting it in a box, you know? And so now it's like this square cloud, when it could have spread out this way, it could have spread up this way, it could have turned into an elephant, like, you know, cloud
Yeah.
pictures, you know. But it could become anything, right? It could become anything.
Mm.
And we have no idea what it might become.
Yeah.
And
And what a gift for Penny and Owen that day when, you know, you had this lesson planned of water and then they were like, no, we don't want to do that. And they can, and you're like, oh, okay. You don't, whereas in a different environment, it'd be like, no, sit down. You have to learn this.
Yeah.
You can't go to the toilet. That's what Penny thinks is hilarious. People ask if they can go to the toilet at school and the teachers are like, no, you can't go.
Right. But like, and that is so beautiful that she knows that that's a little weird, right? Because like the way because we went to school, so we were indoctrinated, programmed with the idea that that's completely normal. And then we grow up and then we get to, you know, my first job out of university when I was in my 20s, I worked at a corporate company, and I also had to log out of my phone. That it was like a time clock on my phone when I went to the bathroom and log back in. Yeah, when I went to the bathroom. And it was a corporate
Wow.
company that was supposedly very respected, and we all had to wear our fancy business clothes, but I had to log out of my phone.
No tie-dye.
Yeah, right. My tie-dye business clothes. I wore suit jackets.
Isn't it funny the worlds we used to walk in?
I know it really is. And you know, and that's the thing. Like I mean, I didn't used to have the same perspectives at all that I have now because I was completely indoctrinated.
Yeah.
Completely indoctrinated.
Yeah. But at the same time, we needed to experience that in order to be where we are now, to know what we know now. And
like you were saying, it's such a progression. Like you kind of leveling up and you see more and you see more and you see more, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So and you know, I find that this is just, I think it's going to become more and more of a conversation piece for many people because in our country the education system is capitulating.
Right.
Can see it and like I can see it more clearly now because I have a daughter in that system and I've not been involved with it in general. So I think more and more people are going to begin to question as they awaken to what's going on
and starting to question, so if these are, you know, government created schools, do they really have my child's best interest at heart? Is what they are learning you know, even valid, even accurate? And then how else is the school system being used to have more control over me? And how does the rest of the way the world's set up lead me into this space where I need the school system so that I can survive and put bread on the table, right? And all of that. And so then we can start to see how everything sort of connects and how, you know, one indoctrination center sort of leads into the next and everything sort of cycles, right? And then it's like we're in this closed, you know, it's like the
cloud
gate
in the box.
Right, exactly. Well, so another myth that I would love to speak to is the myth that, because this is a big, I hear this one all the time, that children need to go to school to be socialized.
Oh yes, that's my favorite.
Yeah, that's a good one. So do you want to speak to that one first, and then I'll sort of jump off it?
Sure. Well, I'm going to use my oldest daughter as an example for that. Like, I've been asked that so many times, you know, how are they going to survive in the real world? How are they going to have friends? And, you know, when Abby decided that she wanted to homeschool, she was 10 and we said to her, right, you need to tell us why you want to homeschool. And then obviously she came up with a really good argument. We were like, okay, fine, you can do that. And so then probably when she was about 12, she started to realize that because the way that we've worked with our girls is it's been they have led the whole way, so it's been project based and they've said that what they want to learn, and the idea for that is to help them learn how to create their own structure and also to create self-discipline.
Right.
So to encourage self-discipline and self-motivation, self-inspiration. And so when Abs was about 12, she realized, I don't really have the structure that I want. And so we sat down with her and she said, okay, well, this is what I want to create. This is what I want. And she came up with her own structure because she thought at that point, oh, maybe I need to go to high school. And so she investigated a number of high schools around the area. And then it came to an open day for one of the local Steiner schools. And I said to her, well, are we going to the open day? Because that's what we talked about. And she's like, nah, I've decided that I don't really want to do that, because she goes, the biggest reason is that I don't want to go into that environment 9 to 5, 5 days a week. Because she said, you and Dad don't live that life. And I don't really want to live that life either. And I said, okay, that's cool. So she then decided to create what she wanted from there, to the point where now she's got this group of people where one of her best friends is 25 years old. One of them is 22 years old. The youngest, she's got this beautiful group of people ranging from about, Abs is now 15, 16 in a few months. And she's got this beautiful group of friends who range between sort of 13 and 25. And they are all like-hearted, like-minded, supportive, so nurturing of each other, and love each other and would do anything for each other. And Abby is like right at the center of this, and she's created this utopia for herself and this tribe that is completely separate to our family, our little family of 4, yet at the same time, not based on any sort of artificial means of they have to be the same age or anything like that.
Right.
So
Yeah.
when she was given the space to organically socialize, she pulled in people who naturally resonate with her as a human. And she's one of the most social people I know.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. That's so beautiful. And it's so true what you say about the um this idea that children should all be grouped together by age, because I've seen how beautiful it is when different ages come together and they're working together and they're building each other up, and the older kids are taking responsibility for the younger kids, and the younger kids are teaching the older kids in their own way, and all of that. So it's really beautiful.
Which is the way it used to be in larger families, wasn't it?
Right,
And probably
exactly.
still is in
Yeah.
places. Yeah.
Yeah, and that also assisted in, like, what I was saying before about how kids have to go to school so that I can go to work and put bread on the table, right? Because then we older children were taking care of younger children so that parents could pursue other interests or passions or whatever their gifts are, right? Like whatever they're here to be, whoever they're here to be, right? Which is very much part of our gifts and how we work in the world, right? And I say work like this because it doesn't feel like work when you're bringing yourself, right?
Yeah.
But
it's truly, that's true socialization, isn't it? That's true human to human interaction.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So in my experience with this, so I guess the first thing that I want to say is I always sort of chuckle at that from the perspective of, like, do you know, and okay, I don't want to completely generalize here because it's different for every child. Okay. So I'll make sure my ego isn't getting into this, or my own experience. Breathe, Michelle. I personally, and I've worked with many women with similar experiences, was traumatized in middle school.
Yeah.
And it sort of led into high school. Now, let me reframe that a bit. It was exactly what I needed. Like, I can look back and I can see that everything that I navigated was purposed to wake me up, to help me remember who I am, all of that stuff. But we're moving out that age, right? We're moving into a new age where the goal would be that our children don't have decades healing past trauma. They're on the ground running, right? Like they're just ready to go and ready to create and ready to build, right? In this higher frequency space. So first of all, when people say that, I'm like, yeah, I was socialized, I was taught, I was traumatized, I was taught that that I couldn't trust people, that people would hurt me, that not to trust myself. I
Yes.
I lied. I started lying in middle school because I was part of like a sort of a smear campaign, drama, a whole bunch of girl thing. And to protect myself, because I felt like my truth wasn't enough and it wouldn't cover my ass enough, I would actually take it a step further. I actually learned to lie,
Yeah.
right? And so at some point I had to um own that in myself. And this is in my 20s. This was sort of when that piece of shadow work began and started to practice being in my integrity and only speaking the truth.
Mm.
But my point is, the socialization to me is more of a trauma installment program,
Mm.
the way that it looks. So, and that's, nobody has to agree with me. Like you might think I'm crazy, anyone watching this, but that really, yeah, that's really my perspective. And I know that is going to be probably dissonant for some people and be very triggering. And certainly no one is putting their child into a school with that intention at all. I mean, we all want our children to have beautiful experiences, and we have the best intentions. So
Yeah. And I think I want to just qualify that as well, is that like exactly like you said, is every child is different. And
right.
like I had my own experience at school, but and I look at and then I look at my two children, and they both had very different experiences. Abby spent a
Yes.
couple more years at school than Penny spent at school. But if Penny had been in the school system up to this point, she would be a very different child. There would be a lot more trauma. And go back to what we were talking about before of providing that safe space, that nurturing space, that protective space where a person can explore their own skills, their own talents, their world. And then when they feel ready, they can go to the next one. That's the opposite of trauma.
That is the opposite. Yes.
That's safety. And
Right.
and the true socialization provides safety,
Right.
because you feel you trust yourself, because you know your parameters, you know your environment.
Yes.
And even if you don't know your environment, you know yourself enough to know that you can deal with this environment.
Deal with it.
And
Yeah.
then when you go into the next level, you can interact in the way that feels right for you, not in a way that you think you should because everyone else is doing it.
Right. Right. 100%. Yep.
So it's a paradigm of socialization, isn't it? Like we're talking about a paradigm of socialization that others may be coming from a completely different perspective.
100%. Yes. 100%. Yeah. And I can also say again, back to my eldest child, like he, it wasn't a trauma installment program for him. Like certainly not, overtly anyway. I mean, he had some instances in middle school where he was being bullied, but then we happened to move, we just happened to move. And so he started school for high school, and he really had a very safe experience, I would think, in high school until senior year when everything happened with, these last 18 months. But that didn't come from peers, that was something external. So,
also, isn't it interesting? Sorry, did you want to continue? Because
no, go
okay,
ahead.
isn't it interesting because you were in a completely different space when you were raising them as well, and the level of presence that we as parents are able to give them provides that safety too. And so he's going through what he's going through, which actually pulls you in to be more present with him, to go, okay, what's happening here? How do we need to shift this? And then we work together to find a new way. And that is then all contributing to our level of safety too. There's I know a friend shared yesterday, there's a movie that is over the next few days, it's free to watch. I think it's based on Eckhart Tolle's work, called Milton's Secret. And it's
Okay.
about a young boy who it introduces his parents, and both his parents are completely not present. They're in the corporate world, and he's going through all of this, trauma, and it's about helping, it's about healing that trauma within generations. And so, I watched the trailer last night, and I thought every high school kid should see this. And
Yeah.
every parent as well, because we've learned too, and I'm sure you guys have, we've learned that the more present we are with our daughters, the more that we just sit and listen to them, the safer they feel, because they feel like they're heard. And that's all that any of us really want to feel, isn't it?
Exactly. Yes, that is all that any of us want to feel. Yeah. Or yes. Yeah. And I can see, like, for myself, like, even just personalities of my children, for example, like my eldest mirrored where I was at.
Yeah.
And then like my second child mirrored my expansion and what I was ready to see. Like, he showed me everything I was ready to see. And if Lucas had showed me those things, I don't think I would have even seen them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
I don't think I
Yeah.
would have seen them.
Because you weren't ready.
I wasn't ready.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I would have just been resisting and pushing him through and like fighting against everything, and
Yeah.
not seeing what he was trying to show me. Yeah. And then, and also, like what I was saying before about the socialization piece and how I was saying it's a trauma installment program. This doesn't mean that we're trying to protect our children from having experiences either. Like, we're not like trying to like bubble wrap them and like, oh, protect their, thin skin and their weak hearts. No, absolutely. Like, we deeply understand that they're meant to have experiences that run the whole gamut of human emotion and all of that. But at the same time, like, for me, it's a feeling that, like, that's done. Like, that space, like that, the energy of that environment is old and it's done.
Yeah.
And like, just mirroring what you were saying about how, they are in a safe space where they're creating and they're building and they're discovering what they're drawn to and who they are. That is the space we're going into now. Like, where we are learning that, or not learning, but we are remembering that self-trust and the fact that we are creators, and not here to be fed things. We're here to bring it out of us. We're here to throw it up, not be fed.
Nice
analogy.
That just makes me think about one more myth that I've heard a lot as well, is I couldn't do that. I couldn't spend all that time with my children.
Yeah.
And you go back to, and like, I don't even need to say it, but I'm going to say it, is that we're not making anyone wrong for their choices in what you and I are saying. We're just offering our experience, because we know that in offering our experience, we might help people to see somebody to see something from a different perspective.
Yeah.
And, everything that you just said then, when somebody says, I couldn't do that for my kids, pretty much all the time when somebody said that to me, I just allow them to have that perspective, because that's their perspective, and I don't try to change it for them. What I know is that spending the time that I have with my daughters has helped me to know and trust myself even more. And that's the greatest gift that I've received from my daughter's choice to homeschool, is knowing who I am. And that's a gift. And people will say, well, how you're lucky because you've got, you've got you and James and you can do it together. There are things that James and I do together, but there also are a lot of things that James and I do very separately, because we are two separate beings walking in this world. And so even if I didn't have James, I know that I would have found a way to be able to give my daughters what I needed to give them, because this was my path as well. This is not just their path, this is my path. And I want to know I want to know who I am, so that I can throw up that stuff into the world and be a beacon and create a better place. So,
Right.
that's what I have to say about that thing. What about you?
I love everything you just said, and I feel the same way about it. I think about, that voice that says, "Oh, I could never do that," or I can't do that. I think about how in the beginning, the first year that I was homeschooling, even though I never said that out loud, and I really never said those words to myself, my energy sort of mirrored that, where I would still be like resistant to it at times.
Mm,
I never questioned my decision, but we're all different too. We have different personalities. That's kind of the way I roll. Like if I make a decision, it's like I'm
yeah,
owning this and I'm going to stick with this, right? And I'm going to walk it and learn what I can from it. But I would, my energy would be so resistant to it on some days. And I think also the younger your children are, the more it may be that way,
yeah,
because as it does get easier. And
yeah,
in terms of them becoming more self-sufficient, more independent, it doesn't take as much of you, like with little ones, right?
yeah,
Um, everything, and
yeah,
wiping poopy butts, and all of it, right? Um, so I just want to say that, like, I get that, and I honor that. But I completely reflect back what you're saying, like everything that like that energy that I speak of that I felt, it was all just my own fear-based beliefs about
yeah,
myself. And the more that I walked it, the more empowered I became, the more, like you said, the more self-trust I accessed, the more I learned about myself.
mm,
And I mean, at some point, and I know that we've spoken about this before in previous videos, but a big piece of it for me also was, um, oh my gosh, I agree to be their mother,
mm,
like in a way that we aren't taught in Western culture that motherhood is.
yeah,
Um, it's a more ancient based idea of motherhood, the mother, and all of that. And for me, that was a huge part of it, because I felt something open in me, and I could feel like all the grandmothers like nodding their heads, like, yes, you're getting it, you're getting it. So it was a very spiritual experience for me, and it doesn't have to be that way for all of us, but at the very least, we absolutely learned that we have no limits, and we thought we did. But if we keep challenging ourselves and agreeing to grow, like, the limits just keep disappearing,
yeah.
they just keep disappearing.
Oh, I think that that's a really good place for us to end today, sister.
Yeah.
I just want to like elaborate, or just like, or it's not even elaborate, it's like affirm what you just said about the mother, because we, like, when we do this, we're all going on our own path. When we do this, where we are we're calling back the mother energy that's been suppressed for 100, 200 years, like it not like really suppressed. We're calling it
Right.
back. And we're creating the bridge. We're making the bridge stronger for these children to walk on. And when we become one of the grandmothers, we'll be doing the same thing. We'll be there and people like, yes, that we can see you, we can see what you're doing. And because it's the mother that helps us to feel safe.
Yeah.
When we connect to her, like I'm looking out my window right now. When we connect to her, we feel so safe, so connected, so like the depths of
Yeah.
humanity. And
Yeah.
that's when I agree to be the mother, that is so powerful.
So powerful. And don't you feel yourself being mothered as well?
Yeah.
Like when
Yeah.
you agree to be the mother, you can feel the mother's mothering you
Yes.
about you,
Yes.
and this domino effect, and everyone is safe and everyone is taken care of.
Mm.
And speaking of that, just real quick, like to anyone who is watching this and considering going this route, just know that like no matter where you live in the world,
find
I
people.
guarantee there are tons of groups, co-ops. You know, I mean, I know around me, like, well, back to the whole socialization thing. I mean, we could do something every day with a whole group of people. You know,
Yeah.
like I have to pick and choose like what we do. So like reach out, like go to different social media groups. Um, you know, so many mothers, so many of your sisters are so ready and waiting to lift you and support you and help you on this journey.
Yeah.
And before you know it, you'll be doing the same thing for the next round of sisters that are coming up. So
Yeah.
it's just
And the
know
best
that.
part as well is that you can do nothing if you choose as well.
Yes, exactly. Let's pay homage to that. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Totally. Like you get to choose what your weeks look
You
like.
get to choose.
You get to choose. Yeah. Totally.
Beautiful. All right. I'm gonna press stop the recording. So thanks everyone for listening. I think we've had an awesome chat today.
Yeah.
See you next
Thank you.
time. Stop recording.